all that
Okay.
kind of stuff. I want to get all the adjustment out of the way, but we are starting the stream now. And then just waiting here to get feedback from the channel on how we're sounding.
I will say you sound definitely better than this.
Yeah.
Like
Really?
More consistent, I would say.
Yeah.
Mm.
It was just weird because you'd be fine, and then it would just like drop off like you were talking through a pillow, and then it would come right back up.
That is weird. I don't know. But after I was done, I had to unplug everything and plug it back in. So maybe
That might help.
maybe I'll let the magic smoke out. So in the channel, if you could hear us, that'd be great. If you could let us know how we sound. Could someone actually type that in? Oh, it looks like someone hears us.
Okay.
All right, All right, so we are going to get started. How's the sound throughout the cast? Please let us know how we're sounding. We're here to serve you. So welcome to the Kubernetes Office Hours. This is the U.S. edition. We run these once a month, third Wednesday of every month. One session for the European time zone, and this is the West Coast friendly time zone. I'm going to be your host, George Castro. I work at Heptio. And panel, please introduce yourselves. Let's go Bob, Jeff, then Mario.
Okay. Hey, my name is Bob Killen. I work for the University of Michigan, where we run several large Kubernetes clusters. My specialty is sort of kubeadm, bare metal, and federation, and all the other random things that come with that.
All right. My name is Jeffrey Sika. I also work at the University of Michigan. My main specialties are the cron jobs, batch scheduling, jobs API, and like initializers and admission controllers.
You're a developer.
Yeah, I'm a developer.
Sweet, and I am Mario Loria. I run a meetup group in Ann Arbor called Orchestructure, which all of the guys currently on the call are very heavily involved with. I also work for a company called Liquid Web, which enables small and medium-sized businesses to run their websites effectively on Kubernetes. So my focus areas are pretty much everything ever, and lately it's been storage. So that's me.
Ooh,
We had a lot of storage questions earlier.
We did. And we have two more folks joining us at some point here. I'm in the Heptio office today, and they're grabbing a conference room like as we speak. So when they show up, they'll show up. So let me cover the ground rules first. If someone can plop the YouTube URL into the channel with the /live at the end, so as we get new people, they could just click through YouTube. I would really appreciate that. And as we do this, feel free, the audience, to just, as you're Googling for whatever it is we're talking about, toss it. Feel free to toss links, and we'll read them. We'll read them aloud. Okay, so first things first, the rules. Judgment-free zone. We might get new users, people that are just getting started. So let's keep this positive as far as helping each other out and things like that. While we will do our best to answer your questions, there are certain things that we can't do. Like we don't have access to your cluster, in your proxied environment kind of thing. So in cases where you're having a deep technical issue that we can't really diagnose, we will at a minimum either point you to the correct SIG or to the correct place in the documentation where you can get help to kind of at least give you a place where you can get started during your investigation and research. Panelists, you're encouraged to expand on answers with your experience and pro tips. So, don't just answer the question, but if you have any insight or things that have burned you in the past or things that are going great, let us know. That one of the reasons we like to do this is that's kind of high bandwidth environment where we could just talk about what we're doing in production and things like that. So audience, you can help by if you're finding URLs, especially official docs, blogs, or anything that might help and that's relevant to the topic at hand. Feel free to just whack it into the Slack channel, and then we'll get to it. And you can help us out by tweeting this, spreading the word, pay it forward if you get help, try to help someone, all that kind of good stuff. All of our sessions are recorded and available on YouTube. So if you're using this as a work resource, also let us know, because I'm really interested in seeing how teams that are doing operations and development with Kubernetes can better use this forum as a resource. So I have this dream that people sit in the break room just watching Kubernetes office hours. So if that's you, thank you. Let's see, if you want to sit on this panel, this is actually open to anybody. Just let us know. We'll pop you in, especially if you have expertise in an area where we are lacking with the current panel. Let's see. I am currently working on getting us prizes and raffles and T-shirts. So if you ask a great question, you'll get a Kubernetes T-shirt and all that kind of good stuff. However, I've not yet been able to secure that kind of stuff. So please keep participating and helping us out. And we're gonna make it really kind of make it like a fun thing that we're going to be doing. And also, if you're going to be at KubeCon in May, we are actually doing a live office hours, or if you go to KubeCon, we'll have a panel. You can ask questions and then just basically, pick developers' brains in a kind of more organized, instead of hoping that you randomly run into somebody at a conference. And lastly, feel free to hang out in hash office hours afterwards and get to know each other and hang out and help each other out. So with that, we are going to start to take questions. So please start to think about questions in your head. Please preface them with question and then a colon so I can kind of see it so it's obvious to me so I know how to read it out. And apparently, is the live stream only showing Bob and me talking? It never shows my face. I don't know why it does that. So with that, I'm going to switch us over to panel mode in Zoom. Oh, we have a new person, Alex. You want to introduce yourself? Sorry, I did not notice you there. Or if you're just listening. Okay.
Just was curious what the office hours are going to be about.
Sure. So you're using Kubernetes? Want to give us your quick intro? Or?
Not at this point.
Okay, no worries. Yes. All right, so let's get started. So we got a first question is from Lewis. It's a question about storage. Here we go, Mario. When will Kubernetes take my raw block devices, set up MD RAID, and format the array in XFS?
Unmute. Okay, there we go. So that is, I was actually just typing the textual-based answer to that really quick, but the quick answer vocally is that it will not. Kubernetes is not meant to completely provision your storage for you. It will interface with your storage using the container storage interface, just like the container runtime interface, etc. And so really, you're going to have to look to other solutions that kind of enable you to get your storage ready and represent it or attach it to Kubernetes to use effectively. There's a lot of solutions out there. NetApp, Portworx, Rook that may use different sorts of backends, Ceph, some ext4, some XFS, and those are file systems, but they basically orchestrate the setup of those file systems on the disk. Specifically Portworx, who actually does its own clustering as well. Kubernetes itself does not manage any of that. So to Kubernetes, you are requesting a volume, you're using a volume, and there's an interface for which you utilize that volume, right? So that's how storage works at the kind of top level. So, yeah, that's all.
He has a follow-up comment that says,
yep.
However, 1.10 will take my raw block device and format it to XFS, just no RAID.
Yeah, I do believe like raw block device and all that's going to be used by the CSI driver and other things of that nature. Like the Rook or Ceph might take care of that.
Sure. Yep.
All right, Lewis, I hope that answers your question. And if not, maybe we can find out if there are plans to add that. We will come back. Hold on. Now the question scrolled off because people are posting memes. Here we go. All right. Nuke Puppy asks, credentials, : It's nice to see that secrets exist in Kubernetes and how it functions. Is this kind of just a short/midterm solution? Does Kubernetes think that they will want to extend that or offload that to external services better, like Vault/KMS type behavior? It's a super hot topic in real production for Kubernetes. So a lot of the hacks folks do today are honestly a bit cringeworthy. Most people just want to get the password to their app outside of source control.
So I believe there's already some Vault integration there.
And I'm pretty sure Ralph has an answer to this question, but he hasn't joined yet. So Nuke Puppy, we might have to come back to that unless Jeff or Mario have any insight onto this one.
I don't. I envision it being something, again, like an interface, right? Where Kubernetes is not going to decide for you what the best option is, but it will interface with other really good options, i.e. Vault. That's my 2 cents on it. I don't know much about secrets. I haven't really worked with them. So yeah, hopefully Ralph can have some more insight on that.
Yep. All right.
So-
Sorry about that, Nuke Puppy. We will come back to you. Any other comments before the next question? All right. Chris asks, question, any plans to have base pod security policy in place at cluster build time so that the admission controller can be enabled from the start?
I haven't seen anything. Oh, now I'm going to go look, because I haven't looked for that specifically.
Yes, and this feels like I can always stick my head out and see if Joe will join us. Or maybe Tim, but let me... Chris? Alright, we might have to defer that one also until we will come back to you when Ralph and or Chris join. Sorry about that. MRA says, scheduler question. My cron jobs are not running on time or at all. Some are running, but many are not. I have 15,000 cron jobs on an 8-node M4.large cluster. All the jobs are quick, 30 seconds to run, but some of them are not running. Where can I go looking for hints as to why they are not run?
Look at the Kubernetes events. And at least that'd be my best guess to first look.
I mean, just based on the description there, I'd be curious if it's 15,000 events that are all trying to run at the same time, and if so, they're probably backing up and then timing out. Okay, sorry, I was catching up with the chat.
Sure.
Kubectl events will probably give you the best first place to look without like actually diving in myself or Bob. That's probably the first place. Are they around the same time? Some are every 15 minutes.
Yeah, and most are once a day.
Because my initial thought is, depending on how much or how many resources each job is trying to take up, you might actually be hitting the upper limit of your cluster, and so they'll just time out.
Mm-hmm. And would that show up in the log?
That should show up in the events.
That should show up
events?
Yep.
Okay.
But the every 15... Okay, so is every 15-minute one not firing? Or is it just some? Because again, like, that is a significant number of cron jobs, so there is a lot of room for you to run out of resources. Oh my god. Chris.
All right, Chris. You're killing me with the memes here because all the questions are scrolling off. How do we collapse that? Can you collapse
You can
that?
click the
Little arrow on the side.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure it out.
But yeah, now I'm trying to find where MRA commented again. So some are most of it. So the once a days are running, but the 15-minute ones are not firing. And kubectl top nodes is showing free RAM and CPU. Do you have any resources allocated to, like, do the cron jobs actually specify how much or how many resources each job requires? Because again, you might be hitting a point where those jobs aren't going to run because there aren't enough resources to schedule them. And it looks like we have more people on.
Yep.
Oh, excellent.
It's Ralph.
Sorry, Ralph is here.
Chris will be joining. Sorry, we're a little late.
Oh, no worries. Go ahead and introduce yourself, and then we have a few backed up questions that we are hoping you know, because we might not.
Hi, my name is Ralph Bankston. I'm a support manager at Heptio.
Another Michigan native. Yeah. Yes. Easiest thing I would say, MRA, is use kubectl events. If you want, Bob or I could probably at least help a little bit with the output if you want a little bit more, like if you want someone to bounce stuff off against.
Yeah.
Because I've never run into that with cron jobs or job scheduling in general.
Same here.
Okay. All right. Moving on now. I'm getting a lot of questions, so if I accidentally skip yours, please feel free to repeat it. Lewis wants to say that you mentioned a tool that may automatically set up storage. I didn't catch the name of it. What were the tools that you were mentioning, Mario?
I'm sorry, for setting up storage?
Yeah.
I'm not looking at the thing exactly right now. So Rook is a popular storage provider. There's Portworx. There is some of the enterprise offerings have plugins now. NetApp, I know, is one of them, which we're talking to. The container storage interface, and I just had the blog post up. But the container storage interface, here, I'll post this blog post and you can kind of get more details. This was the official announcement around that. That, I believe, is in alpha still, or it's moving to beta soon. So that's going to be coming real soon here. I know Portworx specifically is actually working to make sure they work with that as well. And so this will be just like the container runtime interface, this will be the interface for Kubernetes to utilize storage. And so there's also a table I found earlier with all of the storage options and whether they support certain read-write modes. In certain cases, you need a volume that's accessible from multiple containers simultaneously, and not many support that type of use case, as well as others. So I will link what I can in the channel.
Okay, awesome. All right, we're going to go back to Nuke Puppy's questions about creds again, now that Ralph is here. So Nuke Puppy asks, credentials, it's nice to see that secrets exist in Kubernetes and how it functions. Is this kind of a just short/midterm solution? Does Kubernetes think that they will want to extend that or offload that to an external service better for that, like Vault/KMS type behavior? It's a super hot topic in real production for Kubernetes. A lot of the hacks folks do today are honestly a bit cringeworthy. Most people just want to get the password to their app outside of source control. Ralph, do you have any insight on this one?
I've seen it. There's, as you said, Vault is one. One of the options is there is being able to basically create a custom controller that then just injects into your environment a secret, basically. But there's not currently a lot of other options that I've seen native to Kubernetes in that regard.
Mm-hmm. And I've written down that that's probably a place where we should get a status report or report back to the community when we find out about that. So we'll see as more people join. We'll see if someone should be able to answer this question. All right. Here we go. Bootsy asks, on a similar vein to the credentials question, I was looking for a best practice way of injected CA certificates into containers, or at least a de facto config mat format for such things. But I couldn't find anything. Any suggestions? Is there any interest in a certificate/secret type without a private key?
And you can still store it in a secret and just, write it, inject it into a specific volume location.
Ralph, is that you nodding profusely?
Yep, it sure is.
Okay. All right. Hopefully, Bootsy, that answers your question. Feel free to post a follow-up if it does not. Moving on next. Let's see. Ooh, lots of good discussion today. A lot of people. Question, what's the best way for one pod in a cluster to make an HTTP connection to another pod by pod name? Specifically, I'm getting the following error. HTTP connection pool, blah, 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 blah. Max retries exceeded with URL, ... I don't know if you guys can see the error message there. Question is from Payman. I hope I got that correctly. Any insight on this one?
I probably wouldn't be hitting the pod directly. I'd be going through a service.
Mm-hmm.
You can try hitting the IP of the pod instead of the name, because I don't believe the actual name itself is registered in kubedns. But I'm not 100% certain on that.
If it's created as a standalone pod, the name is registered within the namespace. If it's part of a deployment, it's not going to be registered by a name.
Right, and that kind of begs really you should be explicit and create declarative services for pods that need to be accessible by other pods in the cluster. And this might be across namespaces, this might be isolated in the same namespace, but you should be explicit and define those things, so you're not kind of playing guessing or trying to connect directly via IP addresses.
All right, let us know with a follow-up in chat if that answers your question to your satisfaction. Next, NODB asks, question, I have a Perl script that I can give a text file as an argument and get a response from standard out. I have a web service in a separate container that I'd like to call this Perl script from. What's the best practice solution for doing this?
Let me read that.
And I apparently have an echo, but I have no idea why. Is it bad, or is it...
I'm honestly not sure about calling the Perl script from like another container.
I might actually put it as another container in the pod, to be honest. It might be a little easier to do that way.
But how do you call it? And if you have some way of like talking over 127.0.0.1 or something like that, just to trigger it to run, then yeah, you could put it in the same pod and signal it to run that way. Jeff, you're muted. You're muted, and
That was weird. Sorry. Is the web service also running Perl? Or is it like running Ruby or Python or something? Because so if I was muted, you didn't hear me say this. I'm almost the way I...
How about now? Hold up. Are we still getting an echo? Nuts. We hear you with the echo. So is it just me with the echo, or is everybody else? Oh, man. I had to fix the echo. I should have just not talked. 1 second, everybody. Testing, how about now? Oh boy, 1 second. Yeah, 1 sec. 1 second, bear with me here.
Well, not muted, but... Still don't hear you.
Still don't hear you, dude. Okay, I think they can hear you, but we can't hear you.
What?
Well, why don't we do what we can? And
Yeah.
if you can't hear George, yeah, I'll take this in here, and no, don't want to. I'm getting a phone call now. Cool. No, I don't need to answer that. Okay, so let's look at what the next question is here. Bob, were you on one of the questions before things cut out?
To be perfectly honest, I don't remember.
The last question that I saw was one from A. Freeland, and it was a Stack Overflow question.
Okay.
So if you look around 415 A. Freeland, it was Stack Overflow link. Minikube external registry failed.
External registry failed to pull image. Interesting. Yep. Okay, so I guess, does anyone have, I'm pulling it up right now, getting development environments, Quay. My first thing would be authentication to Quay if these are private repos. RPC error. Let's cancel waiting for connection. Yeah, I've seen similar to this before. Usually it's an authentication issue. Usually it might also be a egress issue. Might keep Docker jamming appeals to pull from Docker Hub, but not Quay.io. Interesting. I will keep this open in a tab and see if I can do some digging.
Let's see. Are they behind a proxy or anything like that?
Yeah, that's this is kind of a is this a networking thing? Is this an in-cluster networking thing or an out-of-cluster networking thing? That is quite interesting, though. Maybe manually, I like to launch a Docker Engage Docker image that I've created for kind of troubleshooting and try maybe pulling that interactively inside the container in the cluster and make sure that your networking is where it should be as well. So. But yeah, I'll keep this open in a tab here, sir, and Freeland, and we'll look. Okay, so next question.
Looks to be from Kenzie at 416.
Okay.
Okay, one of you guys can also read it as well.
Yeah. What are people doing and why to handle pod draining from their own management frameworks? I'm working on a solution for node draining to refresh with a new AMI on Amazon, and I don't especially like that the kubectl drain logic partly exists client side, but maybe that's just my irrational bias.
So pod drain. So when he says pod draining, that throws me off because, I mean, you're ideally draining the pods, but you're also draining. I mean, you're draining everything from the node, right? If a node is leaving, it's leaving. It can't do anything, right? So
right.
You could set the toleration on it too, and so remove the node from at least from scheduling.
Well, right. So I've actually edited Kube Controller Manager to pass the node grace periods and pod eviction timeouts and whatnot to make those smaller. They're actually 5 minutes is the pod eviction timeout, which I think is a little bit high. So I guess I'm kind of the node draining. I mean, there's a lot of options here. I would do a little bit of Googling and a little more research. There's a couple great things that I found on this, and I can link those here for setting those options. But other than that, there isn't actually as much documentation. This is something that myself, George, and others can work on around draining and procedures for what actually happens when a node dies. There should be a lot more docs around that. So that's something that we're going to work on as well.
General node maintenance tasks.
Yeah, exactly. So, okay. Go ahead, Jeff, with the next question.
All right. From C. Riley at 416, regarding RBAC and 19X. After implementing RBAC and node auth, I found I saw a lot of these in my Kube API server logs. And it's a bunch of errors saying cannot get resource nodes named IP, like the AWS IP, cluster wide. Cannot watch resource pods cluster wide. I ended up resolving the issue by adding this cluster role binding as part of my bootstrapping process. And it's just cluster role binding. This confused me because of this section from the node auth docs, and he links to them. In RBAC node permissions in 1.6, the system node cluster role was automatically bound to the system nodes. In 1.7, the automatic binding of the system nodes group to the system node role is deprecated because the node authorizer accomplishes the same purpose. In 1.8, the binding will not be created at all. When using RBAC, the system node cluster role will continue to be created for compatibility with deployment methods that bind other users or groups to that role. What am I doing wrong to make this to make me need this cluster role binding? The docs imply that it shouldn't be required. That was a fairly long one.
Yeah. I don't know, I've not seen this issue with at least kubeadm Bootstrap.
So I have not either.
Yeah.
This is I've just used kubeadm myself. So, but I have not seen this need. I'm interested to see what my cluster is like. System node to system nodes. Yeah, this is a custom cluster role binding for sure. With the subject of system nodes being tied to a cluster role. So yeah, that's very interesting. That might be worthy of its own issue, actually, in the Kubernetes issues on GitHub. So I might file that there, and you can definitely get some more devs on that, some more coverage. So.
Anybody else?
I've actually not seen this issue. I've used COPS and kubeadm without seeing that specific error. And I won't forget Christian's Perl question, George.
Yeah, the Perl question, I think, is when my audio cut off and Zoom muted me. So I'll go over that one again, though I think you guys talked on it. Question, I have a Perl script that I can give a text file as an argument and get a response from std out. I have a web service and a separate container that I'd like to call this Perl script from. What is the best practices solution for this? I believe, Bob, you were talking on having a separate container that's in the pod that you can call through 127001.
His question was not about Perl. It was about GKE upgrade experiment slow issue.
Oh, well, where's the other Perl one?
Someone else asked about Perl.
Okay, I see A. Freeland, Echo, can see about drain, the RBAC issue. And then the next one that I saw was Nuke Puppy asking if secrets is kind of done.
Oh, they never heard the answer about the Perl question.
My answer was if it's an asynchronous type job or it's going to take, more time than a web request is going to comfortably be, it should probably be a Kubernetes job. And if I recall, Bob, you said that it should be a separate container in the pod that you can call.
It depends on how they want to do their stuff. If it's like can be accessing the text file or whatever, it could be a container within the same pod, and like you hit a local endpoint to trigger it, or you do it as a Kubernetes job or fully other pod. I think was the general conclusion.
Okay, I think we're on the next one.
Okay,
I think we're caught up. Nuke Puppy, in reference to the previous secrets questions, is secrets kind of done, or is there more work that will happen there?
There's going to be more work. I don't think it's ever going to be done. I think that, like I was saying, I really think that there's going to be an interface type approach to secrets at some point. I could be wrong, but that seems like to be where it's going. And there's always going to be improvements around the security and robustness of secrets. So I would say expect more. I would say actually, if you have the chance to Google and find some more resources, definitely post them. Because I have not been up in that realm for a while. So I'm sure there's a lot going on. I don't know what the SIG is. I'm not sure. Is there a SIG security? That would probably be awesome to jump into and ask around a little bit. There's got to be a lot more coming.
All right. Scroll. Now that I'm catching up with people, does any Roberto at 419? Does anybody use a GUI to manage Kubernetes? We are currently using Rancher with AWS without Kubernetes and looking to migrate over. Any advice, recommendations? One-man operation, 25 plus servers. I can kind of speak to Rancher. Rancher 2.0 is actually just Kubernetes under the hood. It is through and through Kubernetes with the Rancher UI. So that's coming, though they're moving their release date forward a little bit. I don't know when that will actually be ready for production.
We skipped the GKE question.
No, we didn't. Mario talked on that. If we're talking about GKE Kubernetes node pool upgrade very slow.
Yeah.
No, Mario said he was going to keep that open in a tab.
Sorry. Derp. My bad.
I got you. So as for Kubernetes UIs, like I said, Rancher 2.0 is going to just be a very pretty UI on top of Kubernetes. It's going to be its own thing on top of Kubernetes, but I don't personally use a GUI to manage Kubernetes.
Okay, his question was different.
Oh, well then where was it?
Node pool upgrade very slow.
Yeah, I was going to say I don't remember answering that specific type of question, but
I do.
Because it's another Stack Overflow, probably.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, okay. So, Mario, you probably opened one, I opened the other, and then we moved on.
Sorry about that. I have this open in a tab as well because I need more tabs. So this is a long-winded question.
Yeah.
This is not something we'll be able to handle on the call here. This might kind of, it looks like he's using Helm, so I like him already. So definitely I will look into this and see if I can't get an answer in or figure out what's going on. There might be some tunings that need to happen, etc. But so thanks, Christian. We'll come back to it.
Can you read and summarize the question?
So there's multiple paragraphs that are pretty beefy here. It looks like it is basically. I decided to try again. MC router, once a node starts draining, the status of that node changes already scheduling to say, which seems normal. But pods are remaining, so it's kind of a pods remaining during an upgrade, I believe, type thing. So, and I personally have not carried out an upgrade in kind of a live cluster. So this is something I might not know a ton about. MC router, he's using MC router. Okay. Yeah, so this is going to be a little bit of a complex one. So we'll definitely get more details and come back on. And I might, if it yields an interesting result, we can come back in the next office hours and talk more about it. It may be something that impacts others. So go ahead, Jeff, with the next one.
Yep. So then we hit a bunch of wonderful audio stuff. Before I move on, does anyone else have anything to say on using a GUI to manage Kubernetes?
I think the only other really GUI thing out there is OpenShift. But.
Yeah, no, and I was going to say, I'm not sure where Rancher's really gone lately. I know you guys are kind of still in it, but from whenever I started and was using Rancher, it is the most beautiful and probably the most intuitive and authoritative UI there is for kind of handling deployments in general, right? For handling your workloads. It's cons of Rancher, and that's where I'm a little bit not 100% on. I know they were using MySQL as a backend, which was kind of meh. I know that was clunky. I know there was networking issues. There was a lot that they were trying to do to have their own API and have you use that and follow that. Now, most of the time, the people that are using Kubernetes are not really using a UI, and that's why there hasn't been really any UI that's popped up. The dashboard, the official Kubernetes dashboard, has kind of been good enough for most people's general working with Kubernetes. So, yeah.
And so I think we're moving on. Chris actually asked a question earlier on that we were waiting for Ralph and Chris to hop on the call because they might have more insight. Are there any plans to have a base pod security policy in place at cluster build time so that the admission controller can be enabled from the start?
I've not seen that as a thing. We've had some folks put that as part of their bootstrapping process for their cluster itself through some random scripts. But I've not seen that as there are certain parts with pod security policy, depending on how you implement it, that you get into some weird issues with mirror pods so basically your manifests, depending on how everything's hosted for the cluster itself.
Any other insights on that? Because when I first read it, I was also going through GitHub issues and I couldn't find anything specific on that. So it didn't look like it. Thank you, George. You know, some days. If there aren't any other questions in here, let me pop over. All right, George, nod your head or shake your head. If there aren't any open questions in office hours, do I then go to Kubernetes users and scroll?
Yeah, I would say try to pick a couple out of Kubernetes users. There's a lot coming in, and some of them are read the docs, please, type questions. So
I didn't hear what you just said. What about?
Just pick one or two of them, just the latest ones that seem kind of saying things that aren't clearly found via the docs. While Jeff is looking for those, I actually wanted to mention just a couple of things that I've been looking at recently. One is security best practices. Ian Lewis, developer advocate at Google, has a slide deck that I am posting right now in the channel around Kubernetes security best practices. I have not gone through it yet. It looks pretty comprehensive and interesting, and gives a little bit some nice diagrams and whatnot of what's going on. The other thing is that Jesse Frizzell has a blog post, and this is from yesterday, on building container images securely on Kubernetes. And this is without using Docker or needing to bind the socket. She basically has provided a new, and I believe it's called Image IMG, a new utility for doing this really easily, because a lot of people are trying to attempt CD, and in their CD they're building images, and it can be a little bit tedious if you're still kind of trying to do it the Docker way. So I will also link this post in the channel as well, and that's my 2 cents.
All right. In Kubernetes users, Triangle Todd asked, is there a Kubernetes accepted way of adding DNS mask parameters to the kubedns deployment? It seems that if I modify the kubedns deployment on GKE, it gets overwritten. I can't find anything in documentation regarding this. I know there's a kubedns config map, but I'm unsure what I would need to add there, or if modifying DNS mask parameters is even supported.
I don't believe it's supported, but kubedns is also switching over to core DNS here real soon. In fact, you can enable it from the get-go at this point. And I think there's a bit more options you can configure in there.
Yeah, basically what Bob said. I don't know if GK is doing something slightly different. I think you used to be able to edit it. I remember editing it. I'm not sure if it was a config map or I just edited the args in the deployment for it. But the other thing is that you may want to just start using core DNS, and that has almost unlimited options of a lot that you can do as well. If I find any linkage on it, I will post it here. I'm doing some quick searching. So.
You can add the stub domain. It's actually in the Kubernetes docs about, depending on what you need for DNS editing. There are some example files for those manifests.
Okay, cool.
All right, as I am scrounging to find more questions, Ralph, are there any big cool features in 110 that you were excited for that you think are noteworthy to come out? I'm shamelessly stealing this from earlier, George. Thank you.
For me, the one that I'm looking forward to most is CSI going to beta, being a little more accepted, and seeing what comes of that, as storage on-prem is a very difficult thing at this point in time. And it's something that should get addressed, and I'm hoping that CSI does a lot of that. Ceph has a CSI plugin already that I've been playing with a little bit.
Awesome. Anybody else? 110.
Debug containers all the way.
Yeah. All right. Hey, this is Jonathan from Kubernetes users earlier. I have a fresh cluster and deployed an Nginx ingress controller on it. I can see the node ports open up on the nodes, but a curl request to one of the specific ports fails. However, when I curl the cluster IP, it works. Any hints on how to debug this issue? I have a second cluster where this works just fine.
I've had that issue on my own personal cluster, so I'm pretty familiar with it. I would double check what your CNI is and verify that every node is properly joined to your CNI network. I had it where I had Calico bound to a different Ethernet interface, so the BGP status wasn't up for the entire node.
The only other time
entire cluster.
Sorry. The only other time I've seen a similar issue is when something else decides to take over managing of the firewall.
So this is another topical question. What OS is everyone running? Or rather, what is everyone's preferred node OS? I guess this is more of a bare metal question, considering up in the cloud it won't matter.
Core OS.
CoreOS?
Yeah, I also kind of lean CoreOS. A lot of people around me think that Ubuntu or CentOS is a good way to go, just because it's common, they know it, they understand it. Personally, I think that the things that we're seeing with Atomic, that we're seeing with I don't know where Rancher OS is right now, but the thin operating system with the bare minimum I need to effectively do updates, work with maybe some raw storage if I need to, etc. Like, I think that model is very strong and it's only going to grow. I think most people deploying Kubernetes are deploying Kubernetes and either treating their nodes like pets or cattle. The vast majority are probably doing pets. The overall idea, and what I hope more people move to, is ephemeral hosts, where they are just cattle and they can be easily removed and replaced and updated, etc. So this is tricky, though, with a lot of new storage solutions and other things that, for instance, Portworx, uses the storage on nodes, right? And so it depends on those nodes having the drives, them being healthy, etc. So it's interesting to see where this will go. I personally think that use your nodes for compute, have them do that one thing well, and move on. So,
this is another question from Kubernetes users earlier this morning, from Alex. Question: I'm curious how people are handling kube system related config that is in YAML form. Things like core DNS, Calico, kube dashboard for staging and production clusters. We're thinking of using Git branches, but also might keep it simple and just use directories to start. What are your thoughts? And I'm also copying these questions over to office hours, so there's a little bit of context.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, great. This sounds like a package management SIG apps kind of question, right? And so I've been a big proponent. I've spoken here about Helm and how great it can be. It does take a little bit of work depending on what you're trying to do, but the idea is that Helm provides you a really good model for easily handling your deployments on a cluster, right? And there's also KSonic coming up from Heptio. Joe Beta did a great talk on this at KubeCon in December, which helps you build these YAMLs. by default templates that work really well for most people, and then you can interact with them to make your own changes. And what's nice with this is you have these templates and you have a single file that defines the values that make up the configuration that goes in the templates. And the templates are literally just the service, the daemon set, secrets, config map, things like that. And then you have a single values file for each of your environments, maybe dev or staging or other clusters, that defines in very simple YAML the config values for these things. If it's Nginx, it's how many replicas do I want? If it's a Ruby app, it's how many instances to run or extra environment variables to pass, etc. So Helm, KSonnet, there's a few others. I can't remember. The Cube Pack, I think, is one of them. The Helm Summit just happened a month and a half ago, so do some looking for some presentations from there. And there's also Helm 3, which is in rapid development, I believe, and there's a design ideas doc that just went out as well. So a lot of cool stuff happening in this space, but your life can definitely be made easier. Stop just carrying YAMLs around. But you have the right idea in terms of using VCS for those. So I will definitely stop talking now.
Oh, and George just said all the Helm Summit videos are in the Kubernetes YouTube channel, so go check those out. Question from Christian Roy about custom metrics for HPA. I assisted a recent presentation about using custom metrics for HPA, but the presenter told us that the only controller available right now is going to get metrics from Prometheus. Does anyone know if there are any others that would pull custom metrics from other sources like Datadog?
Not offhand.
I haven't seen any currently.
HPA for those is the horizontal pod autoscaler. Yeah. Considering HPC is another thing, it's like feel the need to specify.
That honestly might be something for Datadog to, do in this case.
I would kind of agree. Just, I guess it depends on workflow.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks, George. Outro at the bottom. Are there any other questions?
Probably have time for one or two more, and maybe a couple other quick discussion items too.
Yeah, I'm kind of scrolling through users and the Stack Overflow, and I'm not seeing anything that would be easy to say really quick.
Someone mentioned security and asked me kind of what I thought about Sonabui and Claire. Number one, and I might be a fanboy because George and other people on this call work there, but Heptio is creating some really cool utilities for helping you utilize your cluster and do the best you can to manage it from an operations side. They've got Arc, which we're basically using for backups. And this is another thing, is that kubectl has an export command, which will strip out things like the self link UID and other export isms that aren't needed for re-importation of those configs. And so we actually just ran into an issue where an export of multiple YAMLs of the entire cluster yields or doesn't work for those multiple files. They still have, the first one would be good, but the rest of them don't have those things cleaned out. And so they're really not ready to be imported. And so Arc solves that problem and gives you a really great foundation for doing backups. The other thing is Sonabui, which I have actually not used, but in terms of conformance, it really helps you get in the right mind, state of the cluster is the way it should be. It's going to operate well. I've got the right decisions made, and helps you kind of make sure your end-to-end testing is where you want it to be, as it relates to Kubernetes objects as well. So definitely look into those. Now, a lot of people, and I think we've had questions before around CD processes and how security might fold into that. I think that most people, whenever they have a CI/CD pipeline going, they should be using Claire or other tools like Anchor, or using a registry, which is watching your images, watching those libraries and binaries, and making sure that, if it's inheriting, are the images it's inheriting from, are they safe? Do we need to upgrade that? And alerting you as to that as well. So there's a lot going on in this space. There's a lot of great work, and so definitely look around if you can, and try to build security in from as early as you can. It will definitely help. So
I second that entirely.
Yep.
You said Encore?
Anchor. It
Anchor.
can just be pronounced Anchor, but it's Anchor with an E, I believe. I will link it here in a moment.
All right. With that, if there are any other questions, get them in soon, because going once, going...
We got some people typing.
I know, that's why I'm like trying to hold off. I've seen Lewis typing for a while. Lewis did say, here we decided to use Git branches, but we use a scheme different from what you'd do with source code. He can't say it worked well yet because it's not battle tested. So time will tell. All right. I think that's it for this month's office hours. Thanks to the following companies for supporting the community with developer volunteers. Without our lovely panel of people, this isn't really possible. So thank you to Amazon, Bitnami, Giant Swarm, Heptio, Liquid Web, Northwestern Mutual, Packet.net, Pivotal, Red Hat, Weaveworks, the University of Michigan, and VMware. Soon we're hoping to hold raffles for audience participation with shirts, Kubernetes spinners, and all sorts of other cool stuff. So it pays to ask questions and it pays to help answer questions. So just promoting the community. And lastly, please feel free to hang out in the hashtag office hours chat afterwards. If the other channels are too busy for you and you're looking for a nice place to just sit and ask questions or chat, you're more than welcome to come hang out with us. So, and it is every third Wednesday of the month. So the next one will be Johnny on the spot with my calendar. The 18th. April 18th should be the next one. George, are you nodding or shaking your head? Or do you not? Nodding. All right, good. I said the good words. All right, with that, I think this concludes March's Kubernetes office hours. Thank you, panel. Thank you, George, for being silent.
Problem.
Me take
Yeah.
over.
Thanks, George, for planning all. George is the mind behind this, and audio issues are just, it's the demo gods. They're with Kelsey, they're not with George. It's just how it goes. So
George is the mind now. I'm just the mouth.
Yep.
Cool. Thanks a lot, guys.
The puppet master behind the scenes.
Yep. We definitely hang out in office hours too, as well, throughout the month. So we'll hop in there. So definitely post more questions, and we will use those in our queue. Add those to our queue for the next office hours as well. So thanks to everyone. Let's have a great, fantastic evening.